Hi, I'm Christina Johnson from the FITA Museum, and welcome to an unboxing from home. My interest in historic fashion began in part as a child going through old family photos. So let's take a look at an antique photo album together and see what we see. So this is not really an unboxing. I usually keep this wrapped in tissue on one of my bookshelves. The album dates to about 1900 and it's made of celluloid, which is an early type of thermoplastic. It was often used in fashion to mimic ivory. The album was compiled by a woman living in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. That's in far northeast Minnesota, in a town that was incorporated in 1871 and settled by a lot of Norwegian immigrants. Most of the people in this album were farmers. There was also a thriving ice industry. It makes sense because winter lasted so long there. And when the Northern Pacific Railroad came through, that ice was used to ship perishable goods. The album was compiled by a woman who was born in 1878, and it was either she or her kids who identified the people in it. And that woman is right here, Annette Tooney Paulson, my great-grandmother. She's identified herself as mother here. She was a mother of 6, and next to her, her brother Gunder. Look at that fur coat. I'm going to slip this cabinet card out of its paper window. Cabinet card printing out paper was very thin, and that's why it needed to be adhered to some kind of backing. Sometimes I'm asked, how do you go about dating old photos? Well, in the 1880s and 90s, cabinet cards often included information about the photography studio. We see the studio here and the address, and you can look up when the photographer was active there. Other times you just luck out. Gunder has written December 5th in front of 1897, and that's probably the day that he and my great-grandmother traveled down to St. Paul to have their portraits taken. You can see the background behind them is the same. No date written on the back of this card, but we have some clues. We have the couple's name. I think this is a wedding portrait. You can see all of the corsages on his suit. She seems to be wearing a new dress. We have the wedding band. Let's see what we can find out. Many vital records are digitized these days, and I've learned through census and marriage records that Hendrika was born in 1875. They married on February 21st, 1896, which seems just about right for those sleeves. The story takes a sad turn. I discovered in the 1900 federal census that Johannes was listed as a widower, living with his siblings and his young daughter, Karella. His wife, Hendrika, had passed away in 1898. We'll move on from that. I enjoy looking at these old photos because I like to learn about people's stories, however long or short they are. And as a fashion historian, I enjoy seeing how ensembles were styled. Look at that tie tucked into the lapel. People have always been interested in expressing themselves through fashion, even farmers in Minnesota. And these gentlemen would have had access to fashionable goods through mail order catalogs like Sears, Roebuck and Company, and those goods would have been shipped on the railroad. I've learned a little bit about this young man, Axel, in the 1930 federal census. He was born in 1877 in Norway, and by 1930, he was living with his wife, his 4 children, and his mother-in-law. I hope you've enjoyed paging through history with me today and learning about this Norwegian community in Minnesota, seeing their wardrobes, and discovering some of their stories.